What's not classified is that it was an incredibly successful mission against the Houthis.
Okay, so it was classified. So are you asserting, are you trying to say that the information was unclassified?
I'm not trying to say anything.
That's what I thought. You're not saying that. So you took classified information from Central Command that had a classification marking on it, because that's what's required by DoD regulations, and you put it on an unclassified system. So we're going to get a report in a few days from the DoD Inspector General. And if the DoD Inspector General finds what is pretty obvious, both to you smiling there in the witness seat and to all of us up here, that the information was, in fact, classified, do you plan to take any accountability for that?
What happened during tonight's virtual court hearing at 8:45 p.m.? Eastern was seen by roughly 75 million people around the world. It's important to be clear about what viewers witnessed. On live television, the sitting president of the United States appeared to suffer a total mental collapse. He openly attacked a federal judge, calling her a Nazi, dismissed the Constitution as meaningless, and claimed that he himself was the law. This was not exaggeration, political theater, or heated language taken out of context. It was a man visibly unraveling in real time as his situation spiraled out of control. Judge Beryl Howell responded immediately. She found him in criminal contempt, imposed the maximum 6-month jail sentence allowed, and ordered the broadcast cut while he continued shouting threats after the ruling. Think about what that means. In front of a global audience of 75 million people, the president looked directly into the camera and said the judge was a Nazi, the Constitution meant nothing, and that he alone was the law. Those statements are recorded word for word in the official transcript. He even referred to the U.S. Constitution as a fake newspaper. By claiming he is not bound by the law, but is the law, he used language associated with absolute dictatorship, spoken by the leader of a nation founded on constitutional limits. That moment is now permanently on record. The breakdown began when Judge Howell allowed graphic autopsy photos into evidence. The images showed 132 civilian deaths, including children, connected to rules of engagement Trump personally approved. As soon as those images appeared on screen, he began slamming his fists on the table. From there, his behavior rapidly deteriorated. He launched into rants about Nazi judges, Soviet-style oppression, and fake constitutions. He could not emotionally or mentally handle what he was seeing because the evidence of alleged crimes was being shown to the entire world. Judge Howell's contempt ruling came instantly, while he was still yelling. The written order states that his actions were a deliberate attack on the authority of the court and applies the harshest punishment available for criminal contempt. The 6-month sentence is set to run back-to-back with any future penalties tied to war crimes charges and other ongoing cases. With multiple contempt rulings now on the record, Trump could face years in jail before those main cases even reach trial. Fox News cut away from the hearing after just 90 seconds of the outburst. That decision alone was historic. It marked the first time the network has ever stopped airing Trump live, because his behavior was too extreme. Even for his most reliable media supporters, watching a president call a judge a Nazi and declare himself above the Constitution was too much to broadcast. Other networks stayed with the coverage. Legal experts and commentators analyzed the scene as it unfolded, describing what looked less like a legal argument and more like a serious mental health crisis playing out live on television. The plans Judge Howell laid out before Trump lost control make one thing clear. Federal marshals are scheduled to breach the gates of Mar-a-Lago by 11:00 p.m. tonight. The arrest is moving forward no matter what Trump says or does. The gates will be forced open. The property will be entered. Trump will be taken into custody. His shouting changes nothing. His contempt rulings change nothing. The only thing his behavior affects is how many additional charges he now faces and how history will remember his final hours in power. An estimated 75 million people watched this unfold live. That makes it the largest real-time audience for any event involving a sitting U.S. president since the moon landing. More people watched Trump mentally unravel than watched his inaugurations, his State of the Union speeches, or any major moment of his presidency. This is the moment that will define him, Not policies, not elections, not victories, but a public psychological collapse broadcast to the entire world. Now it's important to take a closer look at what actually happened during that hearing and what it reveals about Trump's mental condition. Legal experts are already saying that the contempt ruling may end up being the smallest consequence of what the world witnessed tonight. The footage from this hearing will be studied for decades by historians, psychologists, and political scientists, trying to understand how a president could fall apart so completely, so publicly. The hearing itself was supposed to be routine. It was scheduled as a standard deposition to establish facts in the war crimes case connected to the Venezuela raid. Trump appeared by video from Mar-a-Lago, flanked by what remains of his legal team. Judge Howell joined from her chambers in Washington. The session began calmly, with normal procedural matters and evidence discussions. Nothing suggested what was about to happen. Everything changed when Exhibits 47 through 63 were introduced. These were autopsy photographs of civilian victims from Operation Absolute Resolve. The images were submitted to document deaths caused by rules of engagement that Trump personally approved. His attorneys objected, but the judge overruled them. When the photos appeared on screen, Trump's breakdown began. At first, the signs were physical. His face visibly tightened. His hands started shaking as he stared at the images. Then he began pounding the table. Steady, forceful blows that caused his camera feed to vibrate. Moments later, the verbal attacks followed. He claimed the photos were fake. That quickly escalated into attacks on the judge, comparisons to Nazis, and denunciations of the Constitution itself. The entire collapse unfolded in about 4 minutes, from the first visible distress to a complete loss of control. The official transcript records statements that will live in history as defining evidence of that moment. During the outburst, Trump made several statements that were clearly captured on both video and audio. He accused the judge of being a Nazi and a Soviet-style tyrant who was destroying America. He claimed the Constitution was nothing more than a fake document written by losers. He went even further, saying that he alone was the law and that his words overruled everything else. He also issued what sounded like a direct threat, telling those involved that they would pay once he was finished with them. Each of these statements now stands as separate evidence. Together, they create strong grounds for additional contempt findings and possible new criminal charges, including the serious offense of threatening a federal judge. Judge Howell's response was calm, controlled, and professional throughout the entire episode. After Trump's first outburst, she warned him that his behavior was nearing contempt. When he escalated by comparing her to Nazis, she warned him again and told him to stop speaking. He ignored her and continued, declaring himself above the law. At that point, she formally held him in contempt and ordered the video feed shut down. Her steady composure highlighted the contrast between a functioning judiciary and an executive figure who was visibly losing control. The 6-month jail sentence reflects the legal limit of what a judge can impose directly for contempt. Any harsher punishment would require separate charges, such as criminal contempt or prosecution for threatening a judge. Legal experts say those charges are very possible. The recorded footage alone provides powerful evidence that could support convictions. Fox News cutting away from the broadcast after just 90 seconds marked a historic shift. The network has defended Trump through every scandal and stood by him in nearly every controversy. But this time was different. A president attacking a judge as a Nazi and declaring himself above the Constitution crossed a line even Fox News would not air. The decision to cut the feed became a story of its own, signaling that even Trump's strongest media allies believe he went too far. The estimated 75 million viewers came from multiple platforms. About 30 million watched on traditional broadcast and cable television, 25 million through online streaming services, and another 20 million via social media feeds. International networks expanded the audience even further. This became the most watched moment involving a sitting U.S. president because nothing like it had ever happened before. Legal analysts speaking live said what they were witnessing would disqualify any person from holding public office by any reasonable standard. Constitutional experts pointed out that openly rejecting the Constitution and claiming personal rule could meet the requirements for disqualification under the 14th Amendment, which bars those who act against the constitutional system itself. Mental health professionals avoided making direct diagnoses, but noted behavior consistent with extreme psychological distress. Many experts linked the breakdown directly to the autopsy photos shown during the hearing. Seeing clear visual evidence of civilian deaths, including children, resulting from orders he personally approved, may have been something Trump could not mentally handle. The clash between his self-image as a winner and the reality of those deaths appears to have overwhelmed his ability to cope. He could not reconcile what he saw with how he sees himself. Despite the chaos, the law enforcement timeline set earlier remains unchanged. Federal marshals are still scheduled to breach the gates by 11 p.m. The property will be secured. Trump will be located and taken into custody. He will then be transported to a detention facility. Nothing he said during the collapse altered that outcome. The arrest moves forward no matter Trump's mental condition. In fact, what he displayed during the hearing makes the case for taking him into custody even stronger. A president showing signs of severe psychological instability while still holding nuclear codes and military authority is a national security risk that cannot be ignored. That situation demands immediate action. To understand why this moment matters so much, it helps to break down what the hearing revealed and what comes next. When you do, it becomes clear that we are witnessing the final hours of a presidency that did not end through resignation or formal removal, but through a complete public breakdown seen by the entire world. First, Trump's claim that the Constitution is a fake newspaper and that he himself is the law amounts to a total rejection of constitutional government. These were not political opinions or heated rhetoric. They were direct statements of authoritarian rule made by someone who swore an oath to defend the very document he was attacking. By any reasonable standard, that alone disqualifies him from holding office. Second, his comparison of a federal judge to Nazis crosses into criminal territory. This was not simple disrespect. It was intimidation directed at a judicial officer, invoking some of history's worst mass murderers. That behavior goes beyond contempt of court and opens the door to separate federal charges, which prosecutors are expected to pursue. Third, the fact that 75 million people witnessed this collapse live means it cannot be erased, reframed, or spun. The video exists. The transcript exists. The world watched a sitting U.S. president mentally unravel while attacking the Constitution. That moment is now permanent, and it defines his legacy. Fourth, Fox News cutting away from the broadcast after just 90 seconds is deeply significant. This is a network that has defended Trump through every controversy. When even Fox decides it cannot continue airing a president's rant, it signals that the behavior crossed lines that cannot be defended. At that point, control of the narrative is completely lost. Fifth, the 6-month contempt sentence does not replace other charges. It stacks on top of them. That means Trump faces meaningful jail time from contempt alone before the war crimes case even reaches a verdict. The penalties are accumulating faster than the legal system can resolve them. Sixth, the timeline set by federal marshals remains unchanged. The gates are still scheduled to be breached by 11 p.m. Trump's conduct did not weaken the case for immediate custody, it reinforced it. A psychologically unstable president with access to the nation's most powerful weapons must be removed without delay for the safety of the country. Seventh, the trigger for the collapse matters. The autopsy photos appear to have forced Trump to confront the real-world consequences of orders he personally approved. In that moment, the abstract became real. The civilian deaths, especially the deaths of children, could no longer be ignored or dismissed. His mind simply could not reconcile that reality. So what happens next? And why does this breakdown matter so much? We are watching the closing moments of a presidency that will be remembered not for how it governed, but for how it ended, with a president shouting that he alone is the law, while federal marshals prepare to arrest him on war crimes charges. Law enforcement has been clear on one key question. Trump's mental state does not stop the arrest. The operation continues regardless. If he is in crisis, that may affect how he is transported or housed, but it does not delay or cancel custody. Marshals are trained to handle unstable subjects, and the plan proceeds. At the same time, impeachment proceedings are now underway in the House. Early projections show a vote margin of roughly 312 to 123, reflecting how the collapse footage shifted previously undecided members. After that display, defending Trump became politically impossible. The result is expected to be the largest bipartisan impeachment vote in U.S. history. Meanwhile, the process to invoke the 25th Amendment is being finalized. Cabinet members are coordinating signatures, with Vice President Vance overseeing the effort. The footage from the hearing provides overwhelming evidence that Trump is unable to carry out the powers and responsibilities of his office. The Constitution includes a mechanism for removing an incapacitated president, and that mechanism is now being used. Within hours, Vance steps in as acting president. The reaction around the world is immediate. U.S. allies release statements expressing concern about America's stability, while adversarial governments begin testing for weakness. Watching a sitting U.S. president mentally collapse on live television sends shockwaves far beyond Washington. It directly affects how reliable and strong the United States is seen on the global stage, and repairing that damage will take years. Financial markets respond just as fast. Futures point to a roughly 7% drop at the opening bell, the steepest single-day decline since the 2008 financial crisis. Investors are reacting to the uncertainty of a constitutional emergency involving a president who appears psychologically unfit for office. The economic fallout does not stop with Trump. Market instability affects retirement accounts, businesses, workers, and families across the country and around the world. For Trump personally, tonight's footage will never go away. No matter what he claimed to achieve during his presidency, it will all be eclipsed by those 4 minutes on camera. He will be remembered as the president who dismissed the Constitution as fake, declared himself above the law, and screamed at a federal judge while pounding the table. That is the image that history will preserve. That is how future generations will learn his name. That is how his presidency ends. The next steps are already in motion. The gates will be breached within the hour. The arrest will be carried out. Power will formally transfer. And the country will begin the long, difficult process of recovering from what the world witnessed tonight. This is the end. We all saw it happen. The collapse is complete. The arrest is moments away. The presidency is finished. Stay with us through these final hours. What happens next will be historic.